Okay. It's up and running. Hey.
Hey, Morten.
Hey, okay, there we go. I'm super happy we can do this. So, given the current circumstances, we're stuck at home. We thought we actually around the topic of mindset. A lot of people deal with fear given the current circumstances right now. A lot of uncertainty, a lot of felt uncertainty in your life, personal life, business, whether you're an employee or have your own business. Around also how it's going to develop in the next weeks, health, maybe yourself, your family. Like there are a lot of topics that pop up in times like this. So I'm super happy to have you here, Elliot.
Thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah, I'm not everyone probably knows who you are, but I hope most of them does, because I talk about you in about every second piece of content I put out. So Elliot, my personal relationship to Elliot here started somewhere in 2015 when I had a pretty rough year in poker, and only I knew about it. So to the outside, for everyone else, it was as if I had an amazing year, but actually financially and emotionally, I had a pretty rough year. And so I've always been working with mindset coaches and was looking to improve and get better. And I just felt like I was hitting a wall. And that's I think when Elliot has been suggested to me by a friend, and so that's how we got in touch. And when we had our first session, then I think about a month later, I banked my biggest live tournament. So that's that.
And then it kept happening.
It kept happening. So I'm very happy to have you here, and finally we can turn around the whole thing, and I can ask.
Yeah, it's fun. Usually it's me asking the questions to you. So you get your turn. You can make put me under some pressure.
I told you I'm gonna grill you. It's like now I have my chance. I'm gonna give it all back to you. I want to start by just asking you how are you feeling right now? Like what's going on in your life currently?
I'll be honest. It's all pretty optimistic so far. Someone's saying they can't hear anything. Do we want to just double check? Can other people hear us? I just want to check before we get going. I think sound is fine for others. Okay. so yeah, I mean, we're in a fortunate situation. We live in Utah. Everything shut down a few weeks ago. There haven't been many cases here. The kids have been off school. So the day-to-day life is the kids are at home. We can't go and do anything, but I work online. So realistically, my day hasn't changed a dramatic amount. Instead of going to the gym for workouts, I'm working out from home. And, that's probably the biggest change. There's some concern about my family who are back in England, and things haven't been dealt with quite as effectively in England. But yeah, an understatement. The Prime Minister talking about shaking people's hands in today.
I've just seen that.
Yeah, it's just unbelievable. So a bit worried about my family back at home, but I feel I have to be realistic. I'm in a fortunate situation. Thus far, no one's unhealthy. And we're at a time where, we can do a lot of good. We can help a lot of people. And there are going to be opportunities and silver linings. We're involved in the online poker community. And in honesty, I think online poker, this might be the biggest, this might be the biggest boom in online poker outside of America opening up. And there's also a chance that this puts some pressure on American online poker opening up. So as terrible as it is, and as negative and as tough and traumatic it is for many people, I don't feel I'm in a position to complain about anything so far, with everyone being healthy. And, business might take a bit of a hit in the short term or something, but a lot of people are having a tougher time than me. And I'm just trying to view it as, what can I do to help? And that's why I'm here with you today doing a free webinar.
So Elliot, for people who don't know exactly what you do, who maybe have a rough understanding or like heard your name, but walk us through, like, what is it that you do? What excites you about it, and how does it day in the life of Elliot Rowe look like?
Okay, so I'm a mindset coach, but the modality I use is hypnotherapy. So effectively, I use hypnotherapy, which is like a form of guided meditation. You get very relaxed and then you focus in on a particular topic. And as you focus in on that topic, it starts bringing up connected memories that help you understand the emotional triggers that are being generated. So let's say you have an anxiety. We'll focus in on the feelings of anxiety, then connect it back to the root causes of the anxiety. So oftentimes it's fear of failure, fear of success created by the way your parents treated you as a child, or being bullied in school, or the way a teacher said that you'd never amount to anything, those sorts of things. And by working through those memories and releasing the emotion, the triggers typically then don't show up in the same way in real life. So what I find exciting about this is a lot of people seem to think that they're born a certain way. So I'm an angry person, I'm always going to be an angry person. And following this philosophy, it's you were taught to be an angry person to keep you safe in your childhood, more likely than not. If we can work through those memories and resolve those issues, you no longer have to be an angry person. Those triggers will be different moving forward. So, when it comes to performance, I've seen a lot of people have extreme results in the way that they perform, the level of effort they're able to put in, overcoming procrastination, anxiety issues, creating more focus when they can overcome these triggers, and find themselves in sort of a situation where they can actually be the best version of themselves. And in terms of what does a day in the life of me look like, it doesn't look very different to this, to be honest. I'm talking to clients in different parts of the world using Zoom or Skype calls, and we're doing these hypnotherapy sessions to help them resolve their issues, or I'm working on video courses, or I'm doing podcasts. I try and work out 6 days a week. I play with my kids, but usually I'm stuck in my house in Utah, and right now we're in quarantine and I'm stuck in my house in Utah. So not a huge change from anything else.
So I love the story how you got into it. Because it had a big impact on you, if I remember correctly. So now again, it's one thing, to imagine of okay, you go through these things, but what for you personally was the most memorable change this had on your life? How did you realize, wow, this apparently can change, if I do this, or do it with someone else, this can change the trajectory of your life? When did you experience that?
So for me, I had a significant fear of flying that I always had through my youth. So I wouldn't take long haul flights. I think I'd been on one ever, and I'd turned down multiple offers on vacations around. I just was like, no, I'm not going, purely because of the flight. And short haul flights, when I would do those, I would effectively, I'd be worried for a week or two before I went on vacation. I'd spend the whole vacation basically worried about the fact I'd have to get on a flight at the end, and it would take all of the fun out of travel for me. But I would still do them, but it was just uncomfortable, and it honestly felt like I was risking my life when I was getting on a plane. Someone recommended a hypnotherapist, and I was very skeptical, as I think everyone is when they hear go to a hypnotherapist, they can help you. And she went through the process I just described. So she had me get very relaxed into a meditative type state, talk about the way I felt when I was on an airplane, and then said connect it back to other memories. And these memories of being on a plane in turbulence came up, which wasn't particularly surprising. And then a very early memory came up of me being 3 or 4 years old, being shown a picture of a small plane at my granddad's house, and being told, oh, that crashed and killed his business partners. So suddenly I had an understanding of why planes might be scary to me. She worked through that, and then she basically, just took me out of the session. I felt differently about flying straight away, which was really crazy to me. So I'm finished the session and I feel like, oh, I don't feel so scared about flying. The most interesting part was a memory I wasn't consciously aware of. So I was spoke to my mom and I said, hey, I did this hypnotherapy session, seems really good, but this memory came up. And she said, oh yeah, that's real, that happened. So it had found a memory that explained everything, and basically, showed me why I would be scared, worked through why I was scared, and then I felt differently. So from that point forward, I was happy booking long haul flights. I was happy going on short haul flights. And, if we hit a massive storm and the things, I don't love being on a plane in a massive storm, but I would say I'm now at the stage where every normal person is with flying, rather than it being something that literally limits my travel. I now live in America. It was at a stage where I wouldn't have lived in America with the way that I felt about flying when in my youth. Now, because of that, I decided to go and get trained, thinking I would just be helping friends and family overcome their fears, and it'd be like a cool party piece to be like, oh, you're scared of spiders or whatever, here I can go fix you in an hour. Started working with friends and family. They started recommending me to their friends, and I started charging. And with anything, if you start getting results, you get more popular, and people start recommending you. And there just became a time where it made much more sense for this to be else. And I enjoyed it a lot more. It was like a passion, helping people overcome things and improve performance. And then I moved into working with more sort of people in performance areas. So poker, fighting, working with athletes, Olympians, those sorts of things. And eventually I switched to almost 100%, I would say, performance, whether it's business performance, athletic performance. So I'm not really working on the traditional anxieties or fears anymore. Nearly all of the work there's still anxiety involved, but it will be performance anxiety, or speaking to a large crowd, or dealing with hiring or firing staff, things like that.
And so, I want to make this as practical as possible and distill like the questions people in the audience have that are listening to you now talking about this. So I think probably one of the most common anxieties or fears right now is like around the uncertainty of the situation, right? You don't really know how things are going to develop. It could be your health, could be your job, your business. What do you suggest how to approach these high levels of uncertainty, and what are potential practices or approaches that people can take in any area that you suggest? Do you have any hacks, any tips?
Any hacks? Yeah. Well, the first thing is no one's an expert at this. There hasn't been a pandemic in our lifetimes, so we can only make best guesses. In the way I can explain the way that I'm dealing with this, and the main way that I'm dealing with this situation is really thinking, how would future Elliot feel about the behaviors I'm exhibiting today? So what can I do that will make my life easier when this is over? Be this in 1 month, in 2 months, in 6 months. So from my side, I'll focus in, and I'll make sure that I'm still doing all of the exercise that I normally do. I'll make sure that from a business point of view, if I get quieter on clients, I'll do more podcasts and release more podcasts helping people, and make sure that my time is still used effectively and it's not just used for Netflix. It's something where there's very little we can control about the wider situation. We have no control other than not going outside. We can probably protect our own health to some extent, but when it comes to how this is going to play out, we can't really impact that. But what we can impact are these small things in our daily routines, and give ourselves a semblance of normality through doing those things. So I would just say, look at anything that you can control and you can optimize, and make the most of that during this crisis. And, I would challenge everyone out there that, you're locked inside. You can be better read than you've ever been. You can probably be stronger than you've ever been. Buy a pull-up bar, do press-ups, do squats. You've got plenty of time. Try and set some goals for some things that are going to be improvements by the time you leave quarantine, because if nothing else, there's going to be a huge rift between, I would guess, the majority of people who are going to watch a lot of Netflix and play a lot of video games, versus the other people who look to do self-development and improve themselves over their time that's locked away. So you can actually gain an enormous edge over this period of time against the sort of the average that's going out there. So that's how I'm treating it. Again,
but that's always the case, right? Like I mean, whether on lockdown or not, if you
Yeah.
if you put in the work and you focus your energy on something, like, doesn't matter if you're stuck inside or outside, like it's.
But I think this is like a multiplier of that, because people are either going to go one way or another. They're going to be polarized. And normally everyone's somewhere in the middle. And right now we're going to see this situation of a lot of people are just going to switch off completely and then be like, oh, I'm going to come out in 3 months. So I think this is an opportunity for us to really hit the multiplier and be like, wow, I'm in a much better place than I was at the beginning of this. So yeah, as I say, that's how I'm treating it. But I truly don't believe there are any experts, because this is brand new and who knows.
It's true. I think what you mentioned around this proactivity to just not get frozen by this situation of like, okay, now everything stops, so like I stop too, but to just proactively like expose yourself to the situation and be like, become creative, right? Like, especially then it's about creating new solutions that make you thrive again. Whether, as you said, like, if you want to work out, don't say, oh, I can't go to the gym, so I'm not going to work out. Like, build your own little home gym, find your exercises, and you might even get better at it and become more creative around whatever you want to achieve.
And we're all saving so much time in like commuting as well. Like, if I'm realistic, like, it takes me about half an hour to drive to my gym and half an hour to drive back. I get an extra hour by being able to do things at home. So, there is definitely that part of things as well. So yeah, as I say, I just see it as, we may as well make the best of this. It's going to be troubling times. It's going to be traumatic for people. But like you say, we don't hit the pause button. We just keep dealing with it and see where they are.
So there's a lot of poker players listening as well. So specifically, I'm asking now a question that I've went through a lot of times, but I want to bring it up is, what's your observation around the most common fears in poker players? Like, I mean, I know you have tons of experience working with a wide variety of personalities and players in poker. But what were your most valuable observations, and what is something you can maybe share in that regard?
I would say one of the fears that people mention an awful lot is fear of judgment. So being seen to play hands a certain way, making mistakes, being judged on forums or by their friends. And that actually stops a lot of players from making the plays they want to play. So that's one thing that I see certainly in the low and mid stakes that can hold people back. When it comes to the higher stake players, like yourself, and this is things that we've spoken about a lot in the past, I think the power of network is unbelievably important.
Really? You think so?
Yeah, funny. Who else says that? I think it's unbelievable. I see it with every single one of the high stake players that I work with. They have people around them to help them develop. It's just normal. It's just the way that it works. And also a growth mindset. This idea, the sort of things that I'm talking about now of, okay, there's now an opportunity to improve myself. I keep making this mistake. I need to study on this part of my game. I need to make a change. I'm getting tired deep into day 3 of MTTs. Therefore, I need to get a personal trainer. I need to be physically fit, or I need to be getting good amounts of sleep. There's this quite clear differential you see when you speak to a lot of low stakes guys, then mid stakes, then high stakes, in terms of the level of optimization that the guys at the highest stakes have in place to truly become the best players. And I see it just player after player. It's the same thing that shows itself.
I actually, I know that you can't talk about your other clients and people you work with, but now that I'm here, I can give consent to talk about talk about what we've been working on. And I want to use this because I think the transparency, or like to get an insight into how this process unfolded when we work together, I think that would be really interesting to share with people. So I'm actually curious too, and I would like to ask you, is how did you perceive? I mean, we started working together 5 years ago, and I think we work more closely together nowadays. But even in the beginning, I think the sessions were more intense and more related to specifically poker. How do you perceive my progress from the first time we started working over the years? Like, how was your experience like?
And we're going full open here?
We're going full open. There's no...
Okay, so to make it interesting for you as well then, when we initially started, I could see and sense quite a substantial amount of self-sabotage. So you had decided to put a limit on yourself for some of those issues that I was just describing. Fear of judgment, what it would mean if you allowed yourself to play your best. And I think, I mean, like you say, we do the more frequent sessions now, but certainly I believe the most important sessions we did were some of those very early sessions where we were working through fear of judgment, allowing yourself to reach your full potential, not being intimidated by what that success would mean for your life. And I felt we had some unlocks there, and it's hard to describe it in the sessions. The unlocks are very clear to me as a therapist when something big has shifted. There's recognize it within a session. We had in some of those early sessions these unlocks where I was like, wow, he's going to actually win now. And it was a stage where you weren't winning live tournaments. I don't think you'd won a major live tournament when you started, and it was like you were holding yourself back from what that might be. And then we had these sessions, and I was thinking, yeah, this is going to be an interesting few months to see what happens when this kid allows himself to play his best poker. And then it played out like literally a movie script. How does that sound from your side, as what I saw over that period?
It's very far away, to be honest. Like,
yeah,
this is so to give more reference. So in 2015, I had a very, very difficult time because I felt like I was financially secure. So at that time I probably had $1 million, been number one online. Like I was from the outside, like all the KPIs you can pull, like I was successful. I was at the top. And still I feel like I was looking for my place, and I didn't, like, there were so many things where I feel like that was the time I was really realizing that I'm chasing something. And one of the first times it sunk in of like, wow, wait a second, like I'm focusing on the wrong things. I try to be something that I personally don't want to be. And it threw me in this place of uncertainty. I didn't know what to do with that now, because I'm winning at the game, but I don't feel good about it. And I can't, and I was so stuck to this idea of money is if I make more, then I'm good. If not, then not. And this was draining me. Whenever I was I was so emotionally involved in the result that I wasn't able to just, enjoy the process,
play the game.
Like, and it was draining. Like I this year I lost like 30-40% of my bankroll, and from the outside it looked like I was winning because I have these cashes and I run deep in the main and I cash 300K there, but then like internally I was playing 24/7. I was like so many buy-ins that people didn't see where I lost money, like and so it was this weird like two-sided world where I was like, this is the life I'm living,
the front facing versus the truth.
Exactly. And then whenever I talked to someone in my close circle, it was like, oh, yeah, but you're running so hot. And I'm like, okay, I can't share the things that I struggle with them because they maybe have a rough time, and I don't want to be like, oh, it's difficult for me, or I didn't feel like I could. And so this time was really important for me because I started looking at that and I started working through that. And then I went back into, man, I'm enjoying this. I just focus on playing the best I can. And when I focus on playing the best I can, it was unbelievable. It was just a different, like nothing else mattered anymore. I remember because it was WSOP Europe in Berlin.
Yeah.
I played a 25K high roller, and I listened to your voice like the 15 minutes before, and I was the first person at the table, and I was sitting there, and there was this crew, and they did like their whole thing, and I was just sitting there closing my eyes, singing in the middle of like 100 people running around and doing stuff. And I remember busting one of the first 10 hands that was absolutely standard, and I was totally fine. I was like, I played well, it was fine, I did my best, and that was the moment I could feel like in this moment something changed.
There's a change, there's a shift.
Because
and then
before I would have expectations high, and then reality, and then I'm disappointed, and then I go back into this hole again. And I think people experience that on lots of different stakes. You know, you go into a final table, you're 1 out of 6, you do this visualization all the time, you're 1 out of 6, you lose a big pot, what happens? How do you feel? You know?
And how do you continue playing when you suddenly have 20% of the big blinds you used to have? And do you continue playing those big blinds to the best of your ability, or do you try and double or nothing? And a lot of people are double or nothing in that moment. And then we saw, I think you had the Bellagio a few weeks later, didn't you?
Yeah, it was the Alpha 8.
Alpha 8 a few weeks later. And then the fire started.
Then it was, from there on, it was just, I think it was this part where just being okay with things, of being okay to do it my way, is like, just, you know, if I feel like making this play, I'm just fine, I do it. You know?
And I mean, that really is one of those things I was trying to describe earlier. This fear of judgment,
it's big,
that holds so many players back. I mean, and why do you think that is? Because you're in that community. Why do people get so scared, so uncomfortable?
I wouldn't just say that's a poker community thing. You know, it's like, it's a life thing. I mean, I see it everywhere, you know, like doing the thing you really love, or you know, starting your self-employment, starting your, like, it's everywhere. It's not only for poker players, it's everywhere, but specifically from that perspective as well. I think it's so important to us as humans to be valued by others around us. And the more we externalize that, I think the more it will block us from reaching our potential. So I had really this thought in my mind, and we worked through a lot of this, is I'm not good enough, and then I set a goal, and then once I reach that goal, then it's fine. And so I put everything into chasing this goal. And the moment I get there, I realize it's not. And I come into the same thing again. I just set something further. I'm like, okay, I'm not fine. I'm not good enough, but apparently I just set the wrong goal. I got to go further. I didn't do enough. I got to do more.
Yeah.
And this leads to this, it's an endless loop. It's just, you know, you can 1 million, 10 million, 100 million, 1 billion, like, you know, when is the point where it's good enough? And to realize at that point is like, wow, wait a second, really, really enjoying this process and having fun, and like feeling like I'm learning a lot, and being free, like that's it. That's the thing itself. Like there's nothing else that I need. It was amazing. I loved the process. It was just beautiful.
And I think that's something that's so key for people to take on, especially from your experience of this. There is no end to the journey. There's never a day where you say, I've done it, right now I'm good for the rest of my life. There's literally nothing you can do in your life that will that's the end point. The reality of it is that you just have to enjoy each day. Like you say, enjoy the growth, enjoy probably more than anything else, the relationships, and the high quality relationships, because we are a social species. And, you know, that's where you were describing that pressure that we all feel. That's where I think people can get true feelings of attainment, is, you know, helping others, good relationships with others, this learning process along the journey. And then once you're in that learning process and that growth process, those good results typically then start coming for people. because
Great.
they're just enjoying the journey, and it's like the unlocks happen and there isn't the same level of pressure on getting the result today.
I mean, I will really like the also maybe to give more insight into how we work together is this visualization part of it's a very strong form of reflection for me. You know, there was like really digging deep into how I feel about certain things. You know, like if I look at the best and the worst parts, this was huge. Like the difference was unbelievable. I remember the part I think about all the time is EPT Barcelona in 2016. Like, you
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah.
So I'm visualizing this oftentimes because in this moment, I literally felt like I could look in their head and know what they're thinking. It was like I was sitting there and I was looking at him, and it was as if time was half as fast. And I just knew. It was like, it didn't make, like, there were certain things I wasn't even able to cope with it because I wasn't used to this. I had no financial stress. I quit poker. I didn't play and I was really excited to play. And I just showed up there and there was a 50K and I was just absolutely crushing it. And then comparing that to other parts where in Vegas, I was grinding. I was 7 weeks in, 12 hours a day. I was tired. I didn't want to play. I played because of side bets and like feeling like I need to. And then I just, you just want to get out of it. And I want to showcase the power of how important it is not only to have the skill set, like in both times with 3 months difference, but the mindset that unlocks and gives you the access to the tools that you worked on over the years. So,
and I think that's really what you're describing is a true flow state. And I think that's what all of us are seeking in anything. To some extent, I'm even seeking that in my sessions. When I'm doing a session with someone, if I can reach this flow state, it's happening automatically. I've done over 11,000 of these sessions now. My brain goes on automatic. My best sessions are when I'm not thinking about it, and it's just coming naturally and just flowing. And I think that's the same for everyone. I have it with you poker guys talking about this, and then even like UFC guys, when they're not thinking about a fight, they fight better than when they're just on automatic and things are just happening. And I think really that's what most of us are looking for, is having this time when it just happens. And it's very hard to describe, but I think almost everyone's felt it at least in some moment in something that they've done. And really the work I'm doing is just trying to remove the resistances to the flow state and trying to increase the percentage of the time that someone reaches that flow state in whatever it is that they're looking to do.
So I'm hyped up right now.
You want to play some poker, don't you?
I want to play. No, it's just a topic. I'm so hyped up about it because I think that I'm of the deepest possible belief that this trajectory of that's where we like unlock like more potential as individuals. You can call it whatever you want: fulfillment, happiness, having fun. Like it comes in all these. It's just all kind of the same thing, describing the same thing for me. Is when I was most successful, I was in the most flow. When I was the happiest, most flow. Like it's all the same. So that's why I think to focus on that, to be more in that state where you let things happen, you express yourself the way you naturally feel about it. I think that's such an important journey. And that's why I'm so excited to have you here, because I think that you're one puzzle piece in helping people unlock that, helping people looking at that, right? Like where are the biggest blockades in someone's flow of energy, right? Where are you constantly reaching that barrier of like, oh, I'm scared of that, I don't want to do that.
Yeah. And I think a lot of the time is this coming from the past? Is this coming from something that's been created? Or is this coming from a fear of the future and what's going to happen next? And when we're in that flow state, we're just in the present moment. And the decision, like take it to poker, is how do I solve this decision point of the hand? And that's it. And it doesn't matter what happens in the future. It doesn't matter what's happened in the past. The only thing is, what is the most optimal thing for me to do right now?
Mm.
And again, it's those triggers. If they can be reduced, you'll find yourself in that present moment with less of the voices in your head saying, oh, but what are they going to say if I do this? Someone's going to, oh, I'm going to let my coach down, he would rather I played it this way, I'm not sure. But in the present moment, you know what it is you need to do.
Yeah.
Once you're at a certain level, you need to be technically good as well.
Elliot, before I want to open the questions to everyone, like in the chat and listening as well. But I have another question that I think might be very interesting. Is so you know me for quite some time now, and we've worked very closely. And you just were talking about how you perceived me in the beginning as self-sabotaging, and I can totally resonate with that. I think there's still a degree of that, but definitely more so 5 years ago. But if you perceive my my growth, or like my last years and my change, like how I developed over time, what would you say were like the key milestones or the key things that really had an impact on my journey from your external perspective?
I would say sort of very early on, it was that key of you allowing yourself to reach your potential, letting go of self-sabotage. Then it was working through to, like you say, Barcelona, where reaching a flow state and you no longer had the pressure of, I want to be part of poker. It's like you'd lost the judgment of it. I then felt a key moment was almost when you were a bit down for a while, when you realized that you'd reached the top and it hadn't solved all of your problems. When you made the switch from poker more into business and more into helping people. And now sort of the next shift that I'm seeing, and obviously I'm being very open here because you're giving me the space to do it. It is now being sort of exceptionally honest to yourself and others. I feel this is the sort of that next transition of the way that you're dealing with life right now, and what that will then mean for your evolution moving forward. Because the more that you do that, the lower the resistance is on everything. And this is where it sort of feels like a momentum that's building, and you bust through the levels faster as you sort of reduce the resistance from all of the different directions. So I would say that's been, I don't know, the last 6 months, where it's just a case of, I'm speaking my truth and this is where I am. And it really comes close to that, what we're describing as the present moment. This you're actively living much more in the present moment now of, this is how I feel about this situation today. How do we deal with that? And that's not a fear of the past. That's not a fear of the future. That's a working on, who I am today and what I am in the present moment. And again, I think these things lead to the exponential growth, because you're basically removing all of the barriers and saying, what happens if I act the way I believe I should be acting in these situations? And I guess in 5 years' time, we'll be able to test that philosophy, and we'll see where all of it's led.
We'll see where it goes. I'm a believer. So I want to open this opportunity to everyone in the chat right now. If you have questions toward Elliot, this is your chance right now. Go throw them in there. I'm going to select a couple ones and try to make this as valuable for you as I can. In the meantime, I actually love this this opportunity to give people a bit more practical insight into how this all works, right? Because it's I've seen this oftentimes as looking at it from the outside of, what does that mean, mindset coaching, right? It's such a word where it's like, okay, so yeah, you talk through stuff. But to actually see, like to actually share the personal experience of how that journey, how that was for me. And I love asking you, it's like, how is it for you, right? Like, how was it for you? Because I have my experience, my perspective, but it must be so interesting because you just see me, once a week, and you have this 1 hour and you just get like the condensed
progress. Yeah.
The condensed stuff. This must be really interesting to have 30 people that you have this? Like, isn't this also an information overflow at some point?
I feel unbelievably lucky. I speak to super interesting people and watch them develop over a number of years. I'm fortunate. A lot of people I've worked with for a number of years. So I get to watch these developments and I get to share a part of their story, which for me is like the most fun part of my job, is seeing this development of people becoming number one in the world at different things. And, it's all quite like a nice, I guess, ego trip proof of concept. If you get to see people in completely different activities, multiple people end up number one in the world, it's like, this is really fun. This is really cool. There's definitely, I guess there's information overload. I don't think I'm capable of picking up everything that's going on with everyone, because like you say, there's so much shifting. Everyone's feeling different ways about the sessions. But I would say there's osmosis with it. I definitely see the trends and the themes. And I see a lot of people a lot of my clients moving in the same way that you are. That, take someone, they have a target that they want to hit, they hit the target, they become very successful. There's then this shift to wanting to help more people, wanting to share the information, wanting to live more in the present. And that's been an evolution I didn't really expect to see at the beginning of my career. I thought it was probably all going to be about the gold medals and the success and the money and
more.
Yeah, more. And it's just client after client, as they reach that stage, they're sort of all saying to me, oh, and now what can I do for the community? How can I help people? Who can I mentor? Because so many people end up mentoring people and, trying to help other people have the level of success and understanding. So it's been really fun to watch. And I just feel, blessed with it, that I get to talk to lots of interesting, much cleverer people than me every week and help them on a small part of their journey. It's a ton of fun.
But I find this so fascinating, because it's what I experienced there is that you, in some way, I think we all, or this journey that you described from, becoming really successful at something, and then after that part, realizing something, right? Like there must be something that you realize that changes your perspective, your evaluation of things. And what I realized for myself there is that the only interpretation I have is that there's a significant shift in the value system that is underlying, that drives my decisions and also of other people. And I think what I observed there is that for a lot of people, this initial drive in the first place to get to that point, like, why do you invest 70 hours a week, 4 years in a row into this thing, that there's a big part of it that isn't all natural, that isn't in your flow, but that is forced, that is like something you that is out of this deep insecurity. And I think for a lot of people, it's the same pattern of just not being good enough. Like, it's for sure for me. Yeah.
I mean, I agree completely. It's something that comes up all the time. If I do this, if I become the best in the world, if I make $1 million or 10 million, it doesn't matter what number it is, whatever number the person has in their head, then I'll be good enough. Then I'll show my parents, then I'll show my teacher, like the bully at school, or whoever the story, the narrative is. And the truth of it is that when someone reaches that point, I had a really interesting interview with a guy who became world champion in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Robert Drysdale. It's on my other podcast. And he was talking about, he had all of this, desperation to be number one in the world, won the world championship. And he was like, do you know how long I was happy for? He's like, I was happy that evening. And he's like, I woke up the next day and he's like, oh, I thought I was now going to be happy forever. And he's like, I woke up the next morning and I was like, great, I'm world champion now. What's next? And I think a lot of people, they have this idea that reaching that high level of success will, like I say, oh, I've completed the game. It's done. I'm now allowed to be happy. I'm now good enough.
Yeah.
And the truth is that it's just not the case. However, the lessons learned on that journey are really valuable lessons. and they're lessons you can share to help other people have a level of success. And there are levels of finance that there's a big difference between having no money and having some money in terms of happiness. There's a level that you reach where having more money doesn't make a massive difference to your life, but there are these earlier levels where you can dramatically shift someone's life if you can help them going from having no money to having even just a comfortable way of life.
Yeah.
And I think that's something I do see quite a lot, is people trying to help other people become comfortable. And once you're comfortable, you have then sort of the space to then improve as a person. And I think this is one of the things one of the positives I think potentially are going to come out of this coronavirus, that suddenly a lot of people have space, they have time to think, they're going to look at the value of money and what it really means. If how useful are your Gucci belts right now if you're not allowed outside of the house? What are the things that are really important? And for me, the things that are important is that my family's safe, I'm spending quality time with my kids, and I get to talk to people, even if it's just online, who I really enjoy the company of. And right now, those are the most valuable things in my life, and the financial side of it isn't really relevant. And I would assume I'm not the only person who's feeling that way. This is over 2 weeks of quarantine. We'll see how I feel in 3 months' time. But
I actually have a really, for me, this was a game changer that I want to share. Is a couple of years ago, my approach to change things was mostly gradually. So let's say when I wanted to experiment with how do I feel about example, so like sugar, eating too much sugar, or like too many sweets, or drinking alcohol, or working out, or whatever it was. And my approach now, that was for me a big game changer and huge value, is to not do it gradually, but to do it radical. So to say, okay, instead of now I'm drinking whatever 4 times a week, and I'm like, okay, I don't feel so good about it. I'm health-wise, like, I don't sleep well, or like I feel a bit uncomfortable with that. And it's like, okay, let me reduce it. And then you maybe, drink 3 times a week, or then you go down to 2, and then it stretches over a long time. And my point is to just say, like, no, I don't drink for a month, and I just see how it feels. And I don't mean radical in the sense of you do this discipline from now on till the end of your life.
Forever,
more
yeah.
Like, try it for a limited amount of time, and then you have the comparison, and then you can settle where you feel comfortable. So you can say, okay, I tried not drinking I actually just didn't drink for the last 5 months. And it was interesting because I had a bet for 3 months. And then afterwards, so the last 2 months, I drank alcohol 2 times. And now I have this in between, because between now I feel like I'm so much more free to choose where it feels good and where it doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
And that's what I think Corona is causing people. It's forcing them to do radical change, to radically reduce 80% of the things they're doing. And I think that's going to bring about so much change, because it's a forced reflection process. It's like, think about if you really want it.
And I think there's going to be this huge shift with all of these companies who've been saying we need to have these offices. Everyone has to work from the office.
Yeah. Any belief, any construct.
All of that, wait a minute, all of our staff have been working at home for the last 3 months, and our productivity hasn't, and it works. And perhaps we don't need to have an office. Perhaps people don't need to commute 2 hours a day. I think that's going to happen. I think there are a lot of people who are going to learn to exercise from home, and gyms are going to change. I think drinking at the weekend, something, we have to go out because it's Friday night. Suddenly you haven't gone out for the last 3 months of Friday nights, and you've been having fun playing board games online with your friends. There's going to be these huge shifts in the way that society runs. Again, it's going to be traumatic. It's going to be difficult for many, but from this sort of environmental point of view, I think there's a chance that we'll think a bit differently about air travel. We'll think a bit differently about driving to work. And I think there might be some pretty strong positive changes that come from this as well.
I'm excited about the change and the positive change it will bring, because I can feel it too. I can feel how I start to question a lot of things where now I'm forced to do where I wasn't strong enough to just, radically change it in the moment. And I was too distracted, and now I'm like, wow, wait a second. I'm going to tackle this now, because now I have, 4 hours a day to think about it, to reflect, to deal with it. And now suddenly I can feel how I'm more focused, I'm more concentrated, I'm more, there's less just it going everywhere, but it's just like less and therefore more compressed. But I want to bring up a question from someone in the chat that I found quite interesting, is because we've also worked with that. And, what are some meditation tips to be really calm during session, or just in general? Because I know with Prime Mind, the app we built together, there's lots of amazing tips. If you haven't checked it out, I can highly recommend look in your section, because I think that's probably one of the best tips to give, is if you want to calm down, or if you can't sleep, we have lots of primers that Elliot created in the app. But in general, around calming yourself down, or like finding that inner peace, like what would be your advice?
Yeah, so one is practice. Don't expect to be really good at something the first time you try. If you're just starting to meditate, so if you're doing mindfulness meditation, which is sort of sitting, following your breaths and trying to let go of thoughts as they come in, you're supposed to be bad at it when you start. People say, oh, I can't meditate. In reality, you're doing lots of reps, because the more times a thought comes in and you let go of it, that's like lifting a weight. You've done a rep, but someone who's really good at meditating, you've done it a long time, they're not going to have as many thoughts. So they're not going to be making the same progress you make at the beginning. So the first thing is accept that this is a process that many people who meditate a lot see it as something they do for their lifetime. They're going to do 40 years of meditation. If you've done 2 weeks, you've done 2 weeks out of 40 years. Don't be too hard on yourself. Just be happy that you put in some effort. What we have in Primed Mind are guided meditations. It's hypnotherapy, it's guided meditations, it's all very close. The difference with that is you're following the instructions from my voice, and there's music to block out noises from the background. So instead of you having to sit there and let go of your thoughts, you just have to follow the relaxation techniques. So that's a very good way to get yourself into that state and to make some positive change if you do find yourself becoming very, very distracted during traditional meditation techniques. So like Fedor said, you can download it for free. We've also, during the Corona issues, we've put a load of free audios on YouTube as well. So sleep, anxiety, get used to working from home. So we put that on the Prime Mind channel so that people don't even have to download the app. We just want to help as many people as possible. So anyone out there, if you like those, please share them, please like them. We just want to give away the content and help as many people as we can during this time.
Awesome. Thanks for that.
No.
I'm just opening up the questions we gathered in advance, because I think there were some really good ones in there that I want to throw at you and like milk more value out of you.
Yeah.
So actually, just now one in the chat that I'm also personally interested in. What also from all the people you talk to, like distilling about preparation. So preparing for, let's call it a big event. Doesn't need to be poker, but in general, like there's one thing you need to focus on. It might be, like a 2-hour tennis game, championship game, might be like a fight, might be 12-hour poker game, your exam at university. Like, what out of your experience are like the most effective ways to prepare mentally for that?
Okay, so direct visualization of whatever it is you're looking to do. with also including, and I think this is a key part that a lot of people miss, visualizing the problems and difficulties that come up and how you'll then respond to them if they come up. So this is a key part of the poker work that I'll do, or even a fight. We don't want a visualization of a fight to be completely one-sided and everything goes perfectly and you knock the person out in 5 seconds. Because yes, you might knock the person out in 5 seconds, but more likely than not, it's going to be back and forth, and you're going to find yourself in a situation where your back's against the wall and you're going to have to dig deep mentally. So what I'll have the fighters do is visualize being in difficult situations and what they do. So it becoming automatic for them to reverse the position, take control of the situation, stay calm and relaxed if they're looking to defend a choke or an arm lock or something like that. And it's the same for any activity. So what do you do if you have a surprise question on the test? What do you do in poker if you're chip leader and you have a bad beat and you're down to 20% of the chips that you had? How do you respond to this? And then visualize yourself working through that in the optimal way, so that when these things happen, which they inevitably do, even if it's not in today's poker tournament, over the year it's going to happen at some stage, you go into automatic rather than going into adrenaline response and panic. And anytime we can reduce the chance of you going into a panic response, we improve the chance of you being more optimal in your performance. So I would say that's key. Another thing is see the importance of some level of exercise on the day that you're going to perform in anything else. Especially, mind sport, exam, poker, chess, things along those lines. I'm not talking about going to the gym and wrecking yourself, but there's a lot of information out there that doing at least 20 minutes a slow jog, getting the blood flowing, actually improves your cognitive abilities. So I would say for the poker players watching, I know it's majority poker players, see that as like your warm up before the boxing match. You're not going to go out there and do a heavy legs day, but you want to get the blood flowing. You want your body to know that today's the day it's going to perform. So like that 20 minutes of very light cardio, I've seen that have a big impact on a lot of players.
Also, to tie that in with a question Philip asked, or a topic that's important for him, because this visualization, I think exactly is the practice, like tying all these things together actually, is one of the things that helped me the most is visualizing this moment of your chip leader, you lose half of your chips. How do you feel? How do you deal with it? Right. And that's exactly the example you made right now is, what if things don't go well? What if you get it in the head and you lose a big pot and then you're 6 out of 6? And nothing changed. It's the same thing as if you just lost a big pot, or if you come in 6 out of 6. It doesn't matter. It just, you make the best possible decisions, you play your best game. And it matters that you played great. And then you go out, you win or you lose, the results doesn't matter.
Exactly. But I think it's such an enormous edge against the majority of the field, who they've gone to the final table, they're chip leader, they lose the chip lead, and then they just panic response because they'd visualized in their mind, I'm just going to run over this table for 5 hours and I'm going to take home the trophy. And because I'm chip leader, I deserve to win. And instead, if you just see, it's just a frozen moment in the tournament. It's relatively random when the day before stops. So, you're just a frozen moment. Your chip stack's going to go up and down and up and down. And the person who deals with that emotionally the best has a big advantage over the people that panic. And, I think that's one of the things with visualization. So many people, when they visualize the activity they're going to do, always visualize the absolutely most positive outcome. And when it doesn't happen, which it most of the time won't, that it's not been helpful for them. And instead, visualizing you solving problems as they occur, and then being happy about the fact you solve those problems, whether or not you win or lose, is like this long-term route towards success.
Yeah. There's 2 little exercises that I go through a lot of times that I want to give as just a thought input here. As the first thing is the observation when it happens. So I consider that just building expectation. Like I'm 1 out of 6 and I'm expecting myself to win, and the expectation is unrealistic and unhealthy. Because I'm binding myself to the result. And it's so like observing of like, oh, wow, I'm doing that right now. I don't need that. So that's the first thing is like, I'm constantly, it was whenever I feel like, oh, I need to win, or like, I need to, it's like, no, wait a second. I don't need that.
Yeah.
That's really powerful for me, because then it's like, oh, okay, I'm 1 out of 6, but there's nothing that comes with it. No expectation. It's just a fact. It's just the same way it could be 3 out of 6 or 6 out of 6, doesn't matter. It's just a different situation. It's more chips, less chips, like just different.
Yeah.
And the other thing is how injecting logic. I don't know where it came up, but this stuck with me. I've read it, I think, in 2014, and like this idea stuck so strongly with me, and it totally shifted my perspective of, imagine if you would be 1 out of 6 and you would always end up winning the tournament, poker would not be played for money. Like if the best player always wins, nobody plays.
Yeah.
Chess, nobody plays for money, because the best player in the world is the 100th best player all the time. And it's this part is so important to understand, is like, you just lost a big pot to a worse player. Great. That's the reason why you're able to make a living off this, or to have fun, because this is the part that makes it fun, is the variance, the up and downs, the uncertainty, like that's the part that why people enjoy poker. And I think it's important to accept the things that you can't change, and to be fine with both sides of the spectrum.
Yeah. It's, like you say, you've got to accept what your job is, and to some extent you're providing entertainment for players who aren't as good as you, and that's part of your job, and sometimes they have to win. So I think going into it, that mindset, incredibly powerful. And like you said, it's just, your chip stack's going to go up and down. You've got to play 200 big blinds as well as you can, and 5 big blinds as well as you can, and that's how poker works. And if you crumble because you've no longer got 100 big blinds, it's going to be very hard to close out a tournament.
Great. Ellie, there's another topic I wanted to get into. So we've been talking a lot about mindset and how to prepare, improving performance. And I think you gave lots of super valuable tips that I think are applicable to all different areas. What are you working on currently? What are the things that you're passionate about right now?
In my personal life, or in poker, and sort of performance?
Sharing more of this value for
okay.
more people.
Yeah, so I mean, in terms of what we're doing right now, we've obviously, as I say, we've just released the free primers on YouTube, and we're building more specific stuff to put into the app. So I'm recording a lot of audios at the moment around anxiety, sleep, working from home, those sorts of things, to help people on that front. And then on the poker front, I have an A-game masterclass that I launched with Run It Once Poker. Mm-hmm. We launched that about a year ago as a $1,000 product, and I do Q&As like this once a month normally on there. So it's very comprehensive, lots and lots of work, lots of homework for you to do, lots of videos with world-class players such as yourself talking about their mindset. So a sort of a complete program for if you want to be a professional. And with all of the chaos that's going on, we decided to drop it massively in price at the moment. So we've given it a 70% discount while the casinos are closed in Vegas, and I've decided to base it just off the win, so that when people are stuck in home, if they want to work on their mindset, it should be sort of within the budget of most serious poker players at $300 for all of the information. And instead of doing monthly Q&As, I'm doing weekly Q&As again until the casinos reopen, just because I think people are going to need more mindset help right now than probably any other time. So that's the main thing I'm doing from that side. And if anyone's interested in that, if they go to agamepoker.com, it will take them to the site. So go and check out that on agamepoker.com if you're interested in sort of these sorts of Q&As and having a lot of homework to do for the next, like,
so
a
you
lot.
gotta love homework.
You gotta love the homework. I mean, because the thing is with this sort of stuff, there's no magic.
I can't work on it. You gotta put in the work.
There is no magic. Like, you have to put in the work. You have to go through all of the exercises.
Here's the blue pill.
Yeah, exactly. Fixed. There you go.
It's like,
but if you want to know what to do, I can provide that for people. And then I'm also doing a lot of podcasts, and I'm really enjoying just interviewing more people, seeing how they're dealing with this. Like, it's sort of like quite an interesting social experiment to see how different people in different areas are like working through this whole process and this crisis. And we're seeing a lot of people put more effort in reframing the way they're viewing things. Like, we're seeing some random sort of heroes come out of this as well as villains, and I just enjoy that. I enjoy watching all of this and trying to do my help. But yeah, as I say, the main thing really is the massive discount that we're putting on that to try and help as many people as possible through the crisis.
Awesome, Elliot. Is there any last message or words that you want to share with people out there? That
I mean, I think the sort of the biggest thing around all of this is, please try and see the positives where you can. And when you are talking to people, again, like, you don't have to be negative because other people are having a bad day. I don't think it's helpful. So if you've had a decent day and someone says, "How's your day going?" you don't have to pretend to have had a bad day because other people are having bad days. Just speak your truth, try and make the best of it. It's going to be a traumatic time. It's going to be a difficult time for a lot of people. But, there's less pollution in the air. The sun is shining. People don't have to go to work. There's lots of books to read. People are doing with stuff like this. There are words. I'm seeing so many people put out free content to help. I think this is a time to build communities and grow. So everyone out there, it's not perfect. Yeah, just like try and see what connections you can make. Everyone's being more open. Just try and make the most of a bad situation, and hopefully in 2 months, in 3 months, it's something that when you go on holiday in 20 years' time to South Korea, someone you'll meet will say, "What was it like for you in Germany or in America?" And everyone in the world now has something in common. It's going to be tragic, but we've all got something to talk about in the future. So let's just focus on that stuff.
I want to jump on that because I think this is something I'm really passionate about, is because I think we always have something in common. It's just a Kickstarter to realize that more, is that it's all connected, and we are all connected in some way. And I think it's really important that we realize that we realize more of that, is how connected we are and how much that matters. And I think there's so much opportunity. That's why, as you said, like, I'm super excited. I'm excited for what's to come, because I think what made me a good poker player is that I see opportunities, I see patterns. And what I see right now is the biggest opportunity I've had in front of my face in my whole life. And so I'm so glad you said that, because I would like to share the same message, is to see that opportunity too. I know it's going to be tough right now for a lot of people out there. I'm so glad you were here, Elliot, and shared your insights, gave value, answered questions, because I think that's the thing we got to look out for now, is how can we come out stronger here? How can we improve?
Yeah. So, and for the most basic part, literally, there's no reason for you not to be able to do more press-ups at the end of this than you can do today. Like, literally no excuses whatsoever. Like, there's just the most basic self-improvement. If you can do 10 press-ups today, there's no way you shouldn't be able to
push-up challenge. It's on. Elliot just challenged
The whole community. Yeah, exactly. But thanks so much for having me on. It's always a ton of fun talking to you, and hope it was useful for the community. And if anyone has any questions or anything, reach out. We're there on social media. We've got elliotrowe.com. But the biggest thing for the poker community, like I said, I mean, we've crushed our margins on that course. We're just looking to help as many people as we can, and I'm going to be doing weekly calls and doing my best there. So yeah, give it a try.
Guys,
and good luck.
Check him out. Give him a follow. One of the best person I've ever met, Elliot Rowe. Thanks for joining us.
I shall see you soon, sir. Have a wonderful week. Enjoy that Vienna sunshine.
I will. Have a wonderful evening, my friend.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
I'm going to kick you out now.
Okay.